Welcome to Racing No Filters. I'm Errol Tucker with my co-host Mike Meathead Collins, and we're sitting here at the 2011 ARC with the SM champion Danny Steyn. So we're going to talk a little bit about what happened here at the ARC. It was a very eventful race, and you were actually in it, Mike.
For Danny and I, it was certainly very eventful.
I'm sure you'll hear a lot of this chatter on the forums. But so green flag dropped. Danny, how did the race kind of pan out for you at the beginning?
Well, first, before we even go any further, I'd just like to say, Errol, I'm not the champion yet. There are a few unfinished matters.
This is true.
Such as tech inspection, and apparently there's a protest that's still floating around. So once that's all taken care of, there's a possibility I might be the champion.
It wouldn't be the ARC without tech inspections and protests.
So I've been told, yeah. Drop of the green, Mike was on the outside behind Blake Clements, gave Blake a very good push. Yep. I slotted into second behind Blake, and I think you came through in third, and we hustled all the way through the infield, through turn 1 to turn 7 in that order, I think. And I think Cliff Brown was right up there with us.
It was either Cliff Brown or Ryan Pila. They both have red cars, and a red car was in fourth.
Yeah, I know. It's funny you can't remember. You
all
were
those
very
cars
involved.
out there, it gets kind of crazy.
We came around, came through 7. I came up behind Blake, had a good push on Blake. Typical bumps drafting that we normally do.
Right.
And he made the shift for 5th as we came towards the black flag stand. And it sounded strange, and he kind of almost stopped. And then I heard 4th gear again. And at that point, I popped out to pass. I didn't know that he'd broken, but apparently he lost 5th gear. But tough to know it. You're making these split-second judgments. This gentleman over here was flying down with 165 horsepower.
I was simultaneously passing Danny on the outside on the left, and he wanted to make sure that I stayed to the left, and he held me tight to the edge of the track.
Well, you were driving the MX-5 car too.
I
right?
was driving
right.
the SM5.
Right.
It's new this year at the ARC. It was rules came out in May. It was the inaugural race. We had one car, my car.
Right.
And we had talked about it. We knew the car was a bit of an overdog for the class, but it's where they put it, so I didn't have to run with the big bore cars. And we went through 10A, and I assumed the lead for about 100 yards. And
I don't think I gave him 100 yards. Believe me, I did not try to turn him, and I think we've discussed this. But what actually happened was I got my bump into the back of Mike, turned him, and it took us both off. I ended up in the gravel trap, but Mike got stopped, and then I think 2 guys went into the back of. Well, I think.
And that basically pulled out a double yellow for the race.
We didn't even do the first lap under green. So I mean, it literally went from that point because there were a bunch of guys.
Welcome to SM at the ARC.
What would it be without man drama, right?
Exactly. So then you guys were under a yellow flag for about 5 laps or so until you got back in. But I think, the drive of the weekend had to be you, where you basically got pushed back to somewhere around 12th place and were able to come all the way up through the field.
Yep. Throughout the weekend, from test day and qualifying, the motor, which is still being torn down right now, the whole package just seemed to work, and I was the fastest I've ever been at Road Atlanta. In fact, during qualifying, I was actually under the track record. So we knew things were good. We were trying out the Hoosiers for the first time as well.
Right.
We'd actually tried Toyo's own Hoosiers. The Toyos were faster in terms of rolling resistance. They were faster in top speed, but you gave away a bit in grip. So we were toying with this decision.
And if anyone knows Danny Steyn, he is the master of data. So I know you've analyzed all those little things.
We went backwards and forwards, and I think Todd Burris made the right decision. He was running a 1.6. He made the right decision to go with the Toyos because he needed lack of rolling resistance because the motor doesn't quite have what we had. But anyway, we were all playing around. I went out with Hoosiers. They gripped really well. If you committed to it, it stuck.
Gotcha.
And it was actually really nice. This was our first real, almost official race on Hoosiers. I think most of the field, or maybe 50% at least, was on Hoosiers. I had a good restart. I hit some other gentleman, bump drafted him, and we were in 12th and 11th, and he almost went through to first place before turn 1, so we had a really good restart. And just the way the traffic felt, I moved. I think I got into 4th place by the time we went through turn 5.
Right.
And it took about 2 laps to get to the front, and then I got very lucky. I got to the front, and then there was a lot of sort of going backwards and forwards instead of working together.
Right.
To
A lot of
catch
guys
up.
fighting each other.
And when basically, if you're too wide, you're too slow.
Right.
And when they figured it out, they started catching. And you notice that I didn't have the fast lap times. The guys behind me were catching, and I was on my radio going to Tim, my support, saying, please tell me that they're going by time and not by laps, because I'm not sure I can take 20 laps. But they ran in really nice SCCA. It was really great to us, and they gave us all 20 laps.
Right.
But at the end, Burris was really close, and I thought that if it be 1 or 2 more laps, he might
He
have
was
had
going to
me.
get you. Good. Now,
Yeah,
were
well-
you running Hoosiers also?
I was running Hoosiers also on the
Okay.
SM5. Excellent tire. Running that as an alternate to the BFG that they run in the Cup. I prefer the Hoosier at this point in time over the 2 with the testing. Do want to say that Todd Burris was in second, Kevin Kopp in third, and that's how it went on the podium. And
In 1/6s.
yeah, in 1/6.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this whole 99 debate, and we're switching rules. There's a new rule format for 2012, but even with the current 2011 format, we had 2 1/6s
They were very competitive.
on the podium.
Exactly.
So that was
And that
quite
says a lot
interesting.
about this track, where you have elevation changes and long straightaways, but then some tight straightaways. So it says a lot that, those 1/6s were right there competitive
But
as well.
Road Atlanta is not really known as a track that favors 1/6s. It's
Right.
generally because of the elevation. The torque of the
Exactly.
99 is typically considered better. 1/6s tend to roll better and are much nicer, so they tend to suit tighter turns. But anyway, gosh, I had something that was really important to say, and it went right out of.
Well, Danny, we're on a time limit here, but I'm certain that you have some sponsors. You thank some when you were standing down there taking the awards and accolades on the podium. Anybody else you want to thank before we go to break here?
Well, first of all, just to thank Tom Fowler at OPM, because puts together a really good program. We had about 20 people underneath our tent. And by the way, there were over 54 Spec Miatas on the field today. So we had the biggest class, and it was like a swarm of angry bees, and it was just buzzing around, and it was beautiful. I wish there wasn't so much drama, but I'd like to thank Tom Fowler at OPM, especially Mike Rossini at Rossini Racing Engine for building a great engine, TrackMate for the data that keeps me sane and points me in the right direction, and also for my long-suffering wife, who puts up with all this stuff at the track and somehow does it without complaining.
Sounds good.
Thank you for joining us on the show.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you very much.
When we come back, we're going to have the SSM 2011 ARC champion. We'll be right back.
For over 90 years, an obsession has pushed us to keep improving how our cars look, how they drive, and how they make you feel behind the wheel. It's in our DNA. It drove us to successfully engineer our revolutionary rotary engine, and it's driven us to reimagine the automobile as a whole today. Our goal? Ultimate efficiency. To achieve the unheard of, where fuel economy, low emissions, and outstanding driving performance coexist in cars accessible to everyone. To pull it off meant starting with a clean slate versus carrying over old ideas and parts like everyone else. It meant starting from the ground up and rethinking everything to work together in unprecedented harmony. We call it SkyActiv technology. Imagine an engine that pushes the boundaries of engineering by delivering the compression ratio of a Formula One race car. And 15% more low mid-range torque, yet 15% better fuel economy, all on 87-octane fuel. Imagine an automatic transmission so smart it perfectly rev matches downshifts faster than a dual-clutch transmission. Imagine entirely new bodies, 220 pounds lighter, yet stiffer and stronger than the bodies they replace. We imagined it all, and more, and then we made it a reality. At Mazda, we saw no other choice, committed to lowering fuel consumption and emissions across our entire lineup while refusing to compromise how our cars drive, pushed us to achieve a new standard for all future automobiles. SkyActiv technology from Mazda. Fuel economy, performance, together. The future of driving begins now. We build Mazdas. What do you drive?
Welcome back to Racing No Filters. So as we mentioned, we're here at the 2011 ARC in Atlanta, and we have our SSM champion, Lee York. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So as you guys may know, you probably do since you're avid Miata and Mazda fans, SSM is primarily in the Northeast. It's really big in the Northeast.
In the Northeast, believe it or not, SSM rules date back to when Spec Miata started.
Right.
It's the original set of rules, unmolested, refined. They don't allow the 99. They still run the stock intake, the spec exhaust. Development is very limited, and in fact, in the Washington, D.C. region where Lee races, they run a sealed horsepower limit,
Right.
and all the cars are exactly the same.
So it's almost Spec Miata at its purest.
It is. It is the purest form of Spec Miata. Jim Thill, who is
Oh, yeah.
probably one of the grandfathers of Spec Miata, he is by far the grandfather of showroom Spec Miata,
Right.
where he believed in the intent of the class from its original roots.
And it's very strong in the Northeast. Very
Very
strong.
strong.
Very strong.
The Mars series, which is one of the premier series in the Northeast, will field 35 Spec Miatas and 40 showroom Spec Miatas in the same weekend. These aren't cars that are double dipping. These are truly unique cars to that class,
Right.
where we'll have 75 or 80 cars show up for a single regional event.
That's great. So we're here at the Arc, and you must really be ecstatic about being able to come down here and shine.
Very. Well, it's my first time here,
Okay.
and only being an SSM car running with a field of mostly SM cars is quite a challenge, because on straightaways, SM cars obviously have more power. So, if they get by you on the straight, the only thing you can really do is try and suck in for a draft.
So
And,
with all the havoc that happened in the first lap, how did your race kind of pan out for you?
well, I ended up getting by a couple of SM cars because of the wreck in turn 10. So I got by a couple of them, and they ended up getting back around me later in the race because they have more power, obviously. But it was good and bad, because I was able to get some positions back, and then when they got back by me, I was able to get a draft from them and suck up to them down the straightaways, which helped my lap times too.
Great. So yeah, you were at that point. You were kind of at the side watching.
I came in after the incident between Danny and I that put me into pit lane twice.
Right.
I was the only car in the class, so after my second trip to pit lane and the handling was a little off, it wasn't worth continuing.
Right.
So I retired the car and got to watch the rest of the race, which I really wanted to do. I'm pretty fortunate that my wife Wendy and I support Lee in his program.
Right.
He's a little modest, 16, 17-year-old here, winning first trip down to the Arc at a track he's never been to.
That's impressive.
That's very impressive. And, for you guys that aren't paying attention, he's coming quick. He can get you.
So now let me ask you, next year's plans, are you planning on running SM or SSM again?
Well, I would like to run SM, but my father and I had a deal. If I won the SSM championship in the Mars series, then I would be allowed to race SM. But unfortunately, I ended up finishing second in the Mars championship. So next year I'll be running SSM again.
Sounds good.
We're still entertaining all offers. That may change over the winter.
Sounds good. Now,
He might be in my car.
and
I
I
have
have
an
to say,
SM5, yeah.
so at your age, taking advantage of possibly, the Mazda Teen Challenge program would be something to look at.
Yes, we've considered that, and it's definitely a possibility.
Sounds good. Well, congratulations
Thank
again. It was a good job on your first outing here at the track.
Lee, we'll give you the same opportunity we gave Danny. Anybody that got you here, anything you need to say before we go to break here?
Well, once again, thank you, Mike Collins and his lovely wife Wendy, for helping me through this whole year, and my dad for obviously providing me with a car and helping me work on it and all that. So thank you very much.
Sounds
Lee, thanks
good.
for joining us.
Great job. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Jim Daniels, who was at SEMA this week and has a lot of information to tell us. We'll be right back. With so much racing going on in the world, you'd have to be a four-headed monster to keep up with it all. Luckily, we have that. Join Peter Keene, Bill Wood, Errol Tucker, and their guest driver analyst each week for an opinionated look at the news coming out of the racing world. Remember, it's GoRacingTV.com for all your racing and video needs. Welcome back to Racing No Filters. Now we have Jim Daniels, and Jim, I'm actually surprised that you're not here at the ARC. This is kind of like your baby, isn't it?
It is. You know, I was there with 13 cars the very first race, and had that race won with 1 to go. We had a restart. I missed a shift. I've won it 3 times since that 2000 inaugural race. That really spec me out on the map. And had to be at the SEMA show this year for some B-Spec and other action, and so I was drawn away.
So what's going on? What did you see that was interesting at SEMA?
Well, as usual, and it had to be the week of Halloween, because that's what a SEMA show is to me, a Halloween show. But essentially, the biggest news related to our show here is the B-Spec. SCCA did announce that they were going to have B-Spec. Of course, the Mazda 2 is in the B-Spec. They're going to run all the shows televised. They're going to do a 3-race format, British touring car style, and those races are going to be it's going to be great. Those races.
So this is World Challenge you're talking about?
World Challenge, yeah, and that's different than the 6 races that Grand Am's doing. World Challenge's format's going to be 3 races on one weekend. It's going to be in a building of the track time kind of events, with the previous event qualifying you for the next event, televised main show. Just like British Touring Car. And then the venues are going to be Miller, the Detroit Grand Prix, which is a biggie, and then Mosport. So we're going to have B-Spec cars, not running fast, but a lot of them, I hope, running around that street course at Detroit in front of the brass.
That's going to be really interesting. Now, any word in reference to what Grand Am is talking about? Because there's talk that we've spoken to a couple people over at Grand Am, and it seems like they're trying to put their B-Spec program together. Any word as to when that's coming together?
Well, my last contact with those folks was that there were 6 venues. It was going to exclude Daytona and Indianapolis, but have some great races other than that. Sprint race format for the non-professional driver. And that they had 5. They only needed 5 manufacturers to sign off. They had 5 commitments, and they actually had 6 commitments. And so they did the test. They've done a subsequent test. I think we're going to see something official from them very soon.
Sounds good. And then we already know that Canadian Touring Car is also putting their B-Spec program together. So it sounds like there's going to be quite a few B-Spec cars out there in 2012.
Yeah, I think for us, Errol, we're going to get to film some cars rolling over and talk about it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Any other news coming out of SEMA?
Well, most of it was the dog
or stuff that you can talk about, because I know you're kind of behind the scenes on a lot of things you may not be able to discuss, but stuff you can discuss.
On our team, with AMG and the effort that we have going next year, we got some pretty exciting announcements. But at this time, I'm not at liberty to disclose them. But our Mazda roots are going to be well displayed in many fronts in 2012, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it on this show.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So how does it feel to miss your first ARC in so many years?
Well, it was difficult. I got to give a shout out to my very dear friend who's passed away, Max Spite's family. They had a gathering down there for him this weekend. I'm so sorry to the family that I could not make it. That race has a special place for me. When there was only Gary Pitts in the West Coast, and then Butch and those guys down there at the ARC saying, you know what, we don't care what anyone says, we want Spec Miata, come race with us. And literally without that event, we wouldn't be a national class or regional class for that matter. And then just the open arms. I know the ARC takes on its own flair, and as a kid who used to look over the fence at the Championship Spark Plug, the American Road Racer Championships, or the Champion Spark Plug National Championships, which is what it used to be. It's a hallowed event, and just look this year. B-Spec was there. Last year they had SM5 there. Before we was even a class, they put SM5 on the ticket. They're pioneers to club racing, and everyone's got to make an ARC race.
Definitely. I mean, this is it's a race that you have to put on your calendar, and it's a must for any true road race fan and competitor. So. All right, man. Any last thoughts before we wrap this show up?
Well, the only thing is, I'm wondering what's going on in the tech shed, and I sure wish we had some time to talk about some of the shenanigans that I've seen.
Well, there's a lot of Spec Miata Man drama going on, and earlier in the show we spoke to Danny Stain and we spoke to Lee York, and right now as it stands, it looks like they're the champions, but who knows what happens after things get hampered out or broken down in the tech shed. We'll see what happens.
Well, congratulations to them. Are the second, third, and fourth place cars who may take their spot in tech.
All right, fella, thanks a lot, and we'll come back online again next Sunday with our third episode of Racing No Filters. Until
Looking
next
forward to
time, until next time, you folks at home, take care.